I'm Esther Dillard on the Black Information Network, chatting with writers and authors who offer an added perspective for our listeners. This is Color Between the Lines.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Joining me is Paula Young Shelton, author of the book Just Like Jesse Owens, a book she wrote with her father, a legend in the civil rights movement, U.S. Ambassador Andrew Young. Ms. Shelton is also the author of the acclaimed children's book, Child of the Civil Rights Movement, a Bank Street College of Education Best Children's Book of the Year. She's a graduate of Duke University and holds a master's degree in education from the Bank Street College. And she's also a teacher with nearly 30 years of experience teaching young children. Welcome, Ms. Shelton, to the BIN.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here this afternoon.
Again, I love this book because it is inspirational. It's part of your history. It's all of that at the same time. And from looking at the history of the story, it's something that your dad used to tell you as a young child. How did you decide that you wanted to share this with the world and not keep it just to the family?
Well, it actually was my father was meeting with some folks at Scholastic, probably about his foundation. He has the Andrew J. Young Foundation. And he started telling this story because my dad is always telling stories. And so when they heard it for the first time, Andrea Pinckney, the acclaimed writer, is also an editor at Scholastic. And she said, "You have to write this as a children's book." And my father said, "I don't write children's books, but my daughter does." So that allowed us to really collaborate on it. And it's been phenomenal working with him on this book.
And I just remember him getting that tremendous award recently by the president. And knowing his history span of 60 years, he's been a civil rights leader, humanitarian, diplomat, politician. What was it like for you and your siblings growing up with somebody with that such accolades and accomplishment?
Well, as a kid, you're often oblivious to all of this, and especially growing up in Atlanta, where everybody already knew him by the time he sort of rose to more national fame. And so it was always fine. We knew all those people in Atlanta. They treated us the same. But I also had my mother there to really help normalize things for us and really provide us with that stability. So it was important to have her there for us while he's gallivanting all over the world.
What do you think that you want, I guess, this book to teach young people? Because you're a teacher, and obviously you're going to probably use this as some of your material to teach your kids in the future. So what is the lesson that you hope that kids will take from this book?
Right. So this story came about as a response to my father asking his father about racism. And my grandfather's response was that racism is a sickness, and the way that you deal with that is by proving people wrong. And I want children to really see in Jesse Owens not only this incredible athlete, but this guy who had so much strength of character that even in Germany at the height of Adolf Hitler, where he's, touting this white supremacy, Aryan race philosophy, that Jesse Owens could come there and just do his best, just stay focused on his goal and win 4 gold medals. I mean, that is just phenomenal. And so I want kids to see that you can do it, ignore what the haters are saying to you, and just focus on doing your best.
I'm sure that many parents will see this book as a great tool to be able to use as well. It's interesting when you're dealing with something that happened in history, but it still has so much relevance to today.
Yeah.
Did you see that correlation when you were writing it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the message is still so relevant today, unfortunately. But what is extremely important is for children to learn the true history of our nation and understand what really happened so we don't make those mistakes again. And I think, highlighting people like Jesse Owens and my father's life to show that, we can defeat this. But we've got to work together. We've got to be able to listen and talk and respect differences. And that's how we're going to move forward.
When you recalled this story and you heard him say this story, was this something that you were like, oh, that's an old story, I remember that story? Or was this something when he was talking to the folks from Scholastics that, oh, I remember that? Was it something that kind of harkened way back, or was this something that you guys often talked about as family,
Yeah, it was definitely something that I recalled from my childhood, because that's when, my father would sit down and he would tell us these stories, when we would come home complaining about, our poor little lives and, what minor incidents we had to deal with. He always had a story from his childhood to help us put things in perspective, and to also help us to realize that this too shall pass and that we can overcome this.
I guess finally, what is the advice that you would like to give to young people who really want to make a difference, who may be inspired by this story?
I hope that young people learn that they have a voice, that their perspective is important. It is important also to listen to your elders and, take their advice. But they need to recognize that they too have a voice to share. And, when you look at the civil rights movement, it was the Children's March in Birmingham that really turned the tide. It was the student sit-ins and the freedom rides. It was young people that, and really you talk about even Martin Luther King, he was barely 30, so it was young people who really led the fight. And so I support young people today voicing their opinions and fighting for what they know is right.
That's a great message. Any new books coming from this wealth of wisdom, this well of wisdom?
Not yet, but in working on this book, I got to hear a lot more stories from my father. So I'm hoping to share some more of those and just other stories that put African-American children at the center and help them to realize their worth and their potential.
Yeah, being able to see yourself, being able
Absolutely.
to make an influence. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Paula Shelton Young, for sharing this with us on the BIN.
Thank you so much.
I'm Esther Dillard on the Black Information Network.